Shalom, Kohala, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Wachakwadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who rule well and who teach well. Shalom to the Occam out there that's pushing the truth, that's laboring in the word, and that's pushing the gospel of the great kingdom that's soon to come. Shalom to the Akwath that's listening in, that's remaining true to the faith and remaining faithful and submissive to their husbands and guiding their children. And shalom to the hopeful elect, to the 12 tribes scattered abroad throughout the four corners of the earth. All right, you Israelite foreigners out there who live among the heathen and who look like those heathen nations. But your lineage goes back to the progenitors of the 12 tribes of the nation of Israel through the line of your fathers. I want to say peace and blessings to you, War Barakatham. And this year, brother Zakaria Allah, branched out here in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. All right, Lord willing, this lesson will be edifying. All right, to the Lord's elect. This is the book of 2 Corinthians. 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 11. It reads, "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices." All right. Occam's razor is the principle that states all things being equal, the simplest solution tends to be the best one. All right. So I was pretty much, just meditating, meditating on the things that's soon to come upon the, upon the tribes. And the Spirit led me to look up, King Alpha Plan, which is also known as Rex 84, and to look at Project Megiddo, all right. And so I had the conversation with Chat, all right. So I went to Chat GPT and I asked it a couple questions, all right. So we're gonna get into it, man. So let's see. I first asked ChatGPT, I said, could you explain to me what Project Megiddo is? And it says, Project Megiddo was a report released by the FBI in October 1999. It was not an actual covert operation or a project. It was named after Megiddo, which is a site in northern Israel associated with Armageddon in biblical prophecy, particularly in the book of Revelation. The report was created to assess the potential for violence by apocalyptic or extremist groups in the U.S. leading up to the year 2000, or Y2K, as it was called. What was the purpose of Project Megiddo? The FBI launched Project Megiddo to evaluate domestic terrorism threats related to the Y2K millennium change, monitor extremist groups that might interpret the new millennium as a signal for biblical prophecy, and prevent potential violence, particularly acts of terrorism or insurrection tied to end-time beliefs. It was essentially an intelligence assessment, not a covert action plan. Why the name Megiddo? The biblical site of Megiddo is traditionally believed to be the place where the final battle between good and evil will occur, as described in Revelation 16, verse 16. The name was chosen because the report focused on millennial religious movements who might see the year 2000 as the trigger for such apocalyptic conflict. Who did it target or monitor? It monitored Christians, all right, Christian identity movement. It targeted militia groups, so-called Black Hebrew Israelites, apocalyptic cults and religious extremists, sovereign citizens, and tax protesters. Public reaction and controversy. Civil liberties concerns. Critics, including religious and political groups, accused the FBI of profiling people based on beliefs rather than evidence of criminal activity. No major incidents occurred from the groups listed in the report during the transition to the new millennium, which led some to argue that the FBI had overreacted. All right. So then I asked, could the remnants of this report by the FBI correlate to the King Alfred plan? And the chat said, that's a sharp and provocative question. And it taps into some deep historical fears and suspicions about government surveillance, racial control, and systemic oppression, particularly in so-called Black American communities. So let's unpack this carefully. What is the King Alfred Plan? The King Alfred Plan is a fictional government conspiracy that originated in the 1960s, suggesting that the U.S. government had a secret plan to detain so-called Black Americans en masse in the event of civil unrest or rebellion. Also to use martial law and concentration camps to suppress any future Black-led uprisings. Its origins was first introduced by John A. Williams in 1967 novel The Man Who Cried I Am. Williams intended it as a satire, a fictional expose of how racist power structures might respond to Black empowerment movements. However, the King Alfred Plan has often been believed as real in some circles, partly because it echoed real fears of surveillance and state violence. COINTELPRO, a real FBI operation, actually did target and infiltrate so-called Black organizations, such as the Black Panthers, MLK Jr., and others. Its realism blurred the lines between fiction and reality. What is Project Megiddo again? As covered earlier, Project Megiddo was an FBI threat assessment focused on apocalyptic and extremist groups. All right? It flagged groups with anti-government, religious, and racial or survivalist ideologies. While it included groups like Christian Identity, militias, and Black Hebrew Israelites, the report was broad and not racially focused in a way that the King Alfred Plan was. So is there a correlation? Here's the correlation, the nuances. In the King Alfred Plan, you had a fictional plan for mass control of so-called Black Americans, fear of martial law in internment camps and surveillance, reflects government distrust, especially among so-called Black communities, and no official policy. It was no official policy, but it was based on real fears of state violence. Correlate that to Project Megiddo. It was a real FBI report on domestic threats, surveillance, and monitoring of extremist groups. Reinforces that the government does track groups it sees as threats, and it was an official FBI policy, not criticized for civil liberties concerns. Both of these documents center on state anticipation of unrest and rebellion. It implies the government is watching and ready to respond, sometimes with overwhelming force. And it has been used to justify or fuel public suspicion, especially among marginalized groups. Why people might connect them, especially in Black communities where real operations like COINTELPRO, Tuskegee experiments, and mass incarceration policies have generated a long legacy of government distrust. Something like Project Megiddo may look like a continuation of King Alfred style thinking. preparedness for so-called black resistance disguised as quote unquote security. In conclusion, there's no direct link between these two projects or these two reports, but thematically both touch on fears of rebellion, whether racial or religious, preemptive state control. Preemptive, that's the key word. Preemptive state control and the surveillance of perceived threats to the status quo. So while not officially connected, all right, it is understandable why some might see Project Megiddo as the spiritual or institutional descendant of the King Alfred plan, especially if one believes the latter was not fictional after all. And then I asked, should such connections be classified and yet practically in use? Could it be extended to not only target the so-called black community, but also the Latinos, Hispanics, and Native American communities? He said, yes, absolutely. If such connections exist, even implicitly, whether classified or not, and are operationalized through surveillance, intelligence assessments, or law enforcement practices, then yes, these frameworks could and often have extended beyond the so-called black community to also affect Latinos, Hispanics, and Native American communities. Let's break it down historically, structurally, and ethnically. Number one, historical precedent, a pattern of expansion. While the King Alfred plan may have been fictional and Project Megiddo real but broad, the U.S. government has historically shifted surveillance and control efforts across racial and ethnic lines. And here's how. For so-called black Americans, you have COINTELPRO, actively targeted civil rights leaders, so-called black power movements, and even moderate politicians. Mass incarceration and the quote-unquote war on drugs policies disproportionately harmed so-called black communities. For Latinos and Hispanics, you have the Chicano movement. Their leaders were surveilled and infiltrated. For example, you have the Brown Berets. Its immigration raids, also known as ICE, racial profiling, and border militarization disproportionately affects Latinos, whether documented or not. Latino political activism, for example, farm workers under Cesar Chavez, was monitored. And then you have Native Americans. Groups like the American Indian Movement were surveilled, infiltrated, and suppressed by federal agencies. The 1973 Wounded Knee occupation led to prolonged FBI crackdowns. Many tribal sovereignty efforts were treated as potential separatist threats. So yes, historically, once the state develops tools to monitor or suppress one group, it tends to adapt and expand them to others. All right? And this isn't random. Okay? This is not random. This is calculated. So let's go to the book of Psalms. Let me see. Where is it? No, let me just look this up real quick. Bear with me, Occam. All right, this is the book of Psalms, chapter 64, and verse 3. It reads, "Hear my voice, O power, in my prayer. Preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, who whet their tongue like a sword, and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words, that they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Suddenly do they shoot at him, and fear not. They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune in laying snares privately. They say, who shall see them? They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search. Both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep." All right. So these devils have been at this for a long time. Okay. As you heard from ChatGPT. All right. The King Alfred plan was in the works in the 60s. All right. Back in the 60s, man. Okay, so let me see. Let's go back to the chat. So it broke down, all right, it broke down the historical precedent, all right, and the pattern of expansion. So now, number 2, it says modern mechanisms of expanded surveillance, tools and frameworks used today that affect all marginalized communities. You have fusion centers, all right, which are federal localized intelligence sharing hubs. And it targets activists, immigration protesters, pipeline opponents. All right, pipeline opponents. I remember when I was in welding school, and there was one recruiter that came in, and he was pitching his company's new project that they wanted welders for, and they were going to pick out the best of us. And I, along with my brother, we were a part of those that was selected. And they was explaining what they planned on doing, and they wanted to bring out a pipeline. They wanted to install a pipeline, and I think it was in North Dakota, and yeah, it was in North Dakota. And he said that there was a little bit of some trouble over there for right now. And getting all the things done that was needed to get the project underway. And he explained that it was the native population in that area who was protesting this project. And he was joking. He was saying that it's not going to take very long to get them cleared out. And then I remember the rest of the students, all of them Edomites, they was all laughing. You see what I'm saying? But it wasn't funny to us. All right? It wasn't funny to us. But this is how Esau works, man. You know what I'm saying? And they've always marginalized. So you also have DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, threat labels. Okay, it's used to justify surveillance of domestic extremism. And it can be loosely applied to indigenous land defenders and racial justice groups. Then you have the Patriot Act and the NSA spying. It was a massive surveillance justified by counterterrorism, and it was used to disproportionately affect immigrants, and Muslims and protest organizers. Then you have the FBI's BIE labeling. All right, BIE was short for Black Identity Extremists. Okay, and that was back in 2017. Okay, for those of you who may have been listening to the videos from our apostles and bishops and elders, all right, you may have heard them cover that. All right, it was this one woman, all right, so-called black woman who was pretty much having the director of the FBI on the stand and asking him, the validity of this label, and he was denying, that he ever seen that report. Okay, so that's just amongst many other things. Okay, it says the language of domestic terrorism, quote unquote, becomes a cover for selectively targeting communities based on perceived threats, not actual violence. Okay, so when you hear these guys talking about homegrowns and all that stuff, okay, understand that there's an end goal to that. You know what I'm saying? Number 3, if it is classified, who is protected? When programs are classified, they evade public accountability, they avoid legal challenges, and may contain racially biased assumptions that are never publicly debated. This secrecy enables patterns of abuse, especially when applied selectively across racial and ethnic lines. If there were a classified continuation of reinterpretation or reinterpretation of something like Project Megiddo or King Alfred, it could absolutely be designed to surveil or preemptively control marginalized communities, including Latinos, Native Indians, especially if those communities are organizing around land rights, immigration justice, or anti-police brutality. Number 4, ethical and legal implications. These practices raise serious questions. Who defines, this is a very important question here, who defines extremism or threat? Who gets monitored and who is left alone? What racial assumptions are baked into the threat model? All right? If a government justifies surveillance or control based on racialized assumptions about disorder or rebellion, that is a textbook example of systematic racism in national security and potentially a violation of civil and constitutional rights. This is why you see Donald Trump talking the way he's talking. You see what I'm saying? We have to go for the thugs. We have to go for the rapists. We have to go for the gangs. We have to do these things. All right, all these buzzwords that's being constantly pushed in the media. Okay? Remember, the accuser of our brethren. All right? This is Psalms chapter 83, verse 1. It says, "Keep not thou silence, O power. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O power. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones." You see what I'm saying? And these devils are on the move with this. Okay? So let me see. It says it's both of these projects, Project Megiddo and the King Alpha plan. They're both theoretically and practically valid to say that frameworks like Project Megiddo, even if not explicitly racial, can be applied in racially targeted ways and expanded to include Latinos, Hispanics, and Native American communities. This is why transparency, public oversight, civil liberty protections are absolutely critical. All right? Otherwise, fiction like King Alfred becomes functionally real, even if never admitted. And then I asked, how could artificial intelligence be used in this endeavor to target these ethnic groups? It says artificial intelligence can be, and in many cases already is, used in ways that disproportionately targets, monitors, and controls ethnic and marginalized groups, including Negroes, Latinos, Hispanics, and Native American communities. While AI itself is a neutral tool, the data it is trained on, the ways it's deployed, and the goals of those who's deploying it can embed and amplify systemic biases. Okay? This is where we get into the real stuff, man. Predictive policing. Data-driven discrimination. What it does. Artificial intelligence analyzes crime data to quote-unquote predict where future crimes are likely to occur or who might commit them. If you remember the Minority Report, okay? How it targets marginalized groups. These systems are trained on historical crime data, which already reflects over-policing of so-called Blacks and Latino neighborhoods. So they tend to send more police to already over-policed areas, creating a feedback loop, right? It says communities with fewer resources get more scrutiny, while others get overlooked. Okay, for example, in cities like Chicago and Los Angeles, AI-driven systems created heat lists of individuals deemed at risk of committing or becoming victims of violence, often without real evidence, just associations or geographic locations. Okay? It says Chicago and Los Angeles. What just happened in Los Angeles a couple months ago? Okay? They've unleashed all these military forces over in LA. And what did you just hear Donald Trump talk about after he federalized DC? He said, we're going to Chicago and other places, all right, to quote unquote clean up the violence. And all of this is being used with the help of artificial intelligence. Okay? Number 2, facial recognition, technology-based surveillance. AI systems scan and match faces for identification or tracking. How it targets marginalized groups. Facial recognition is less accurate on darker skinned faces, women, and non-European features. These inaccuracies have led to wrongful arrests of so-called black men in the U.S. Law enforcement uses it to track protesters, immigrants, and activists, disproportionately affecting communities of color. Number 3, social media and sentiment analysis targeting activists. All right. AI tools scan social media posts, keywords, and behaviors to flag extremist content or political dissent. How it targets marginalized groups. Posts related to racial justice, indigenous rights, or immigration advocacy may be flagged as racial, while right-wing organizing is often overlooked. These tools can stifle free speech or preemptively target leaders, similar to the way COINTELPRO did, but much faster and harder to trace. Okay? Number 4, automated decision making in government systems. Artificial intelligence helps make decisions in areas like welfare eligibility, housing allocations, parole and probation risks. AI systems can deny benefits, flag someone as high risk, or prioritize certain applicants using data that already contains systemic inequality. An AI used in Indiana's welfare system, this is an example that is given. An AI used in Indiana's welfare system had flagged people for fraud based on missing documents, resulting in thousands of wrongful denials, mostly affecting the poor minority applicants. Number 5, check this out. Border surveillance and immigration control. AI is heavily used in drone surveillance, smart border walls, voice biometrics for asylum seekers, behavioral analysts to detect suspicious activity. The impact is these tools primarily affect Latinos and indigenous communities at or near the borders. AI can track movement, social ties, speech patterns, and even predict who may try to migrate, creating a pre-crime style surveillance state for immigrants. Number 6, ethnic bias built into the code. Ethnic biases built into the code. Artificial intelligence is only as unbiased as the data that it's trained on. You see what I'm saying? The data that it's trained on. Objectives it's programmed for, and the people who build it, often lacking diversity, meaning what? Is Edomites who are controlling the programming that this AI is built upon. And these are the very Edomites who have a predisposition towards you Jakes, man. You see what I'm saying? Let's go to the book of Job. This is Job chapter 21 and verse 27. All right, Job 21 and 27, it reads, "Behold, I know your thoughts, and the devices which ye wrongfully imagine against me. For ye say, where is the house of the prince? And where are the dwelling places of the wicked? Have ye not asked them that go by the way, and do ye not know their tokens? That the wicked is preserved to the day of destruction? They shall be brought forth to the day of wrath. Who shall declare his way to his face? And who shall repay him for what he hath done?" You see? And these devils are not going to get away with the things that they're doing, man. And these crafty devices that they're implementing. All right? For the past months, all right, Elon Musk has been building these data centers. I brought out an article a couple weeks back about the massive data center that Mark Zuckerberg is building up. Okay, an entire building that covers acres, filled with nothing but data. You see what I'm saying? So if an AI is trained to identify quote unquote threats, but the data disproportionately portrays blacks and Latino people as suspects, the AI learns to associate those identities with danger. You see what I'm saying? Let me get this. Let me see. All right, this is Revelation chapter 12. Revelation chapter 12 and verse 17. It reads, "And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of power, and have the testimony of Yahushua HaMashiach." All right? So this devil is coming down, man, with great wrath. Okay? And he's wroth with the woman. The woman is Israel. Okay? And they're seeking to make war with the remnant of her seed. Okay? The remnant is talking about the elect. Okay? The scriptures say that only a remnant shall return. All right? Check this out. It says, it concludes with saying, what can be done? Transparency, auditing AI systems, community oversight, and legislation ban or tightly regulate high-risk applications. For example, facial recognition. All right? But here's the problem. They just passed the big, beautiful bill. And within that big, beautiful bill, it states that no state governor has the jurisdiction to alter artificial intelligence or regulate artificial intelligence for 10 years. So no state is able to regulate AI for a whole decade. You see what I'm saying? They're preparing to come down with great wrath. All right? Since I'm already in Revelation chapter 12, let's get it. All right, Revelation chapter 12 and verse 12. It reads, "Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to you, the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time." Okay? So, again, Occam's razor. All things being equal, the simplest solution tends to be the best one. Right? So all you got to do is put two and two together. If these jokers who call themselves prophets are not telling you or not warning you of these things that's soon to come, all right, they're not prophets. These are false prophets. You see what I'm saying? If they're not preparing you for the battle that's coming, they're not prophets. They're false prophets. If they're telling you that this hour of temptation is not coming and that there's no Jacob's trouble, they're not prophets. They are false prophets. If they're telling you that the mark of the beast is sin, and it's sleeping with white women, it's the image of Caesar Borgia, it's you know what I'm saying, you sin with your right hand, because your brain does all the thinking and all that goofy shit, man. If they tell you that stuff, except for the mark of the beast being this subdermal device that's going to go underneath the skin that will enable you to either buy or sell, and it will be placed in either your hand or your forehead. If they're not telling you that, they're false prophets. All things being equal, the simplest solution tends to be the best one. You see what I'm saying? And time is running out. So you're going to have to understand who's teaching the truth and who's not, man. Simple as that. So I'm going to cut that there. I pray this lesson was edifying to the elect of the nation of Israel. This has been your brother Zakaria Allah, branched out here in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. In closing, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ruchak, Wadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who rule well, who teach well. Peace and blessings to the hopeful elect. Shalom.